Hi guys, and welcome back to this exciting episode here at Mod Studio. So in this one we'll be creating a Joshua tree within Speedtree 10. I will be showing you the ins and outs, and if you're interested, this scene is available on my Patreon for those who want it. Go check it out in the link down below. So without any further ado guys, let's dive in. So we're here in Speedtree. The first thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to create our base trunk, and we'll be splitting off that with two other trunks, and then so on and so forth. Let's right click in the scene, add geo, let's select our trunk, and let's make this way shorter. Let's go over to the spine and let's set this to a value of 6. Okay, it's not a very high tree, and let's amend the skin and let's zoom in there. Okay, so now we'll need to create a split in this trunk, so it splits off, and then we'll create another split to split off that. So in the trunk, let's go over to the UV and let's set this UV to a value of 6, because we'll need this to be able to do the splitting. Okay, so now let's select our trunk. Let's go into the segments tab right over here. In the render view at the top, let's go to scribed so we can see the polygons, and let's increase this, and the same goes for the radial amount. And now let's go over to the displacement, scroll down where you see your flares, and let's decrease this amount just a little bit. Okay, so now let's go over to the skin tab. Let's scroll down and let's introduce some splits, and you can fine-tune this to the balance you want, but 0.5 is normally the default setting you have to choose. Let's angle the side one. Okay, and all right, so now our base trunk is set up. Okay, so now we can grow out the 2 second branches that we'll be using. Either you can right click and copy this trunk, or you can add your new one into your scene. So add geo trunk. I like to use just plain tubes. Okay, so in this trunk generator right over here, let's go over to the generation tab. Let's scroll down where we see extend parent. In the type, let's set this to any. If you want to delete this one, obviously we'll be wanting to delete this one. So let's scroll up where we see the number of, let's set this to 0. So now we only have those two graying off right over there. So in the spine, let's make this way shorter. Let's set this to 6 or maybe 2. Very, very, very short. Let's go over to the segments tab and let's introduce some length segments right over there. And now we'll be growing another set of split branches of these ones as well. So let's go over to the skin tab and let's introduce this again. So now we're splitting off that as well. And in the skin tab, let's go over to the radius and let's click on the blue curve and let's adjust the size where it's maxed out. And let's go over to the segments tab, go to the host trunk again and introduce some more segments in the radial amount, because this will be taken through to the second set of branches. Okay, and the same thing goes again here. Let's go over to the skin tab, play with the angles right over here. So now we'll be graying off this last set of split branches. So let's go over to, in this case, we don't need to right click and add geo again. All we need to do is just Control C, Control V. Let's copy that and let's paste that on those ones as well. So you can go ahead and you can split off these as well, but in this case, I'm just going to eliminate those, and let's introduce from the host segments a few more radial ones, because we'll be covering with these with finer leaves. So we're starting to get our Joshua tree figure. All right, so now let's select this last set right over here. Let's add geo and go over to beautification branches. Let's add those. You might be wondering why they aren't appearing. Well, beautification works off a noise angle where it's starting to bend. So that's where a new branch will be growing off. So to do that, all we need to do is let's go to these ones. Let's go to spine and let's introduce some late noise to these. Let's make them smoother. And the same goes for these ones as well. Late noise, and let's introduce some noise and some smaller value for that. And in the last set of branches, let's set the generation mode any as well. So there's one graying off the point. And in the segments tab right over here in the last set of branches, let's introduce a few radial points. Let's deactivate the optimization as this is a Euro asset, a VFX tree, so we're not worrying about the polygons that much. And what you'll be doing now is, let's go over to the Beautification branches right up here, and in the skin tab, let's select these. Let's make the points, the ends, a bit smaller. I decrease them way down. Finesse this a little bit more. Okay, and in the radius setting right over here, let's zero this out. We'll be using the absolute value because I don't want to be going off the parent tree, the parent branch. I just want them to be absolute a size. Okay, so let's set this to 0.6. In the last tube right over here, let's go over to the skin tab, head over to the blue curve, and let's just decrease that amount so the end branch matches the other ones right over there. So now if we randomize this, obviously you will be getting various set of versions of this tree. Okay, so in these first set of branches right over here, I would like to add some direction to them. So add force, go to direction, and let's just rotate this 90 degrees to the top. And there we go. Let's make this indicator a little bit smaller. And let's play with the generation of these last set of branches. Let's go to the align node and just take this about 0.5. Let's increase this value or something a little bit less. Okay, so now we're done for the skeleton of the tree. So let's head over to material creation for this. Okay, let's go over to the materials tab, add new, and let's just call this block. Let's add that. Okay, so now let's just locate the texture. I'm just going to use native location, and let's just head over to where I've saved my textures. Okay, I'm just using this bark beechwood because it's not something you'll be seeing underneath all those leaves, but it's just a filler for the rest of the tree. So let's just select this. It will automatically load in the rest of the data maps. Just give it some time to process because it's 8K maps. Okay, and let's just apply this to the lower part of the trunk base. Let's head over to the standard view. So let's just increase this normals a bit. Let's go over to the UV. Okay, this will work because we'll be covering this, like I said, with a lot of leaves on this. Okay, so now let's head over to the plus and minus icon and let's add a new leaf. Let's head over to the color tab, locate where you've saved your leaves. In this case, I'm just using some bamboo leaves. I know that they're not the actual Joshua leaves, but we'll be shaping them to look like the Joshua leaves. Okay, so let's just select the albedo right over here. Yes to the rest of the data maps. So now let's create another duplicate because we'll be making these ones a little bit more orange for the rest of the tree. Okay, so let's go to the copy one. Let's amend this color so we have a more yellowish tone. Okay, but you can further finesse this how you would like. Now let's go over to the top ones. Now we will be creating the little top green leaves that we have there. So I like to use trunk branches. Let's just use the big branches right over there, and let's set this to, again, let's set this to any generation, set this to any, and we'll be using fronds for these. Okay, so let's set the skin value to spline only, so there's purple strands sticking out of the tree now. All right, so now let's select these and let's add our frond. So now in the leaf here, the green leaf, let's create our cutouts that we'll be using. So now we just select a few of these. You can go ahead and add more of them. The more you have, the better it will look. So I'm just going to use this one right over here for the sake of this tutorial. And let's just add another point right over there. Okay, so let's just zoom in here. Let's add a few more points. For those of you who are wondering, I am using mega scans. These were some of the assets I had before they changed to fab. And if you would like this texture, I think it is about $1 to use this texture now. Okay, let's amend this. Okay, let's give it the high poly version. So a few triangles, the mid poly, another few, and then the low poly as it is right now. So now let's add this material to our fronds. And remember, always in the settings, let's activate two-sided material. So now let's increase the amount of the fronds right over here. Let's go to the generation tab and let's increase this like crazy amount. Let's set this to 50. And in the big branches right over here, let's set the first and last. We only want them to grow at the top right over there. So now in the spine tab, let's increase this a bit more in the generation. And let's go over to the branches over there. Let's set this to 350 and let's set this to 20. So now we want them to grow right up to the end. So let's set this value, the last value here, to a value of 999. And let's shape this value right over here just a little bit thinner. We'll be capping those off. Okay, so now we need to play with the fronds themselves via the angle and gravity to them as well. So let's select this one. Let's focus on this. And in this one, let's go over to the spine tab right over here. Let's angle it downwards like so. And in the green curve right over here. Okay? And now in the big branches right over here, let's introduce some gravity and reduce the gravity at the very top. And we'll be doing this with the green parent curve right over there. So let's reduce it at the top. Okay. And now for the size as well, let's go over to the spine tab right over here. Let's scroll up and there we go. Let's max this out and let's reduce the size at the bottom and give it some more value in the middle and the top. Reduce the gravity just a little bit. So now shift on the keyboard. So now we have our endpoints. So let's now create the rest of the yellow or the yellow leaves for the rest of the tree. Okay, so let's go over to the beautification branches right over here. I said they're a bit too thick. Let's reduce the size. Okay, like that. And same goes for these ones as well. Let's reduce the and let's go to the trunk tube and let's reduce the end size of these ones as well. Okay, so now let's create now the rest of the levels. Okay, let's start with the first set right over here. Okay, so same principle that we have before. Let's select these, Control C, Control V, and let's paste them right on top of these. And let's make them way shorter. Yet again, let's set this to absolute. Let's increase the first and last boundary, 999. Let's reduce the spine to this as well. Okay, so now we've added these ones right over here. Okay, so now let's finesse these ones, changing the leaf shader of them themselves. Let's add our yellow ones on top of those fronds. And let's create our geo for these ones as well. Let's just use this one right up here. Add a few points, or let's make it more interesting. Let's use these ones with the dead points at those. Let's scroll in, add our angle, add a few points right over here. So, and let's add this one for the low version, add a few triangles for the medium one, and then a few more for the high quality one. Okay, so now we have this right over there. And again, the same principle goes for the two-sided material right over there. Okay, so now in the fronds spine system for them as well, let's go into the spine value right over there and reduce the top one because we want them to angle downwards now. And in the big branches right over here, let's go over to the spine tab, and in the late noise, let's introduce some late noise to this. Let's play again with this color. Move this. Let's desaturate this. Let's introduce something like this, but less bright. And let's move these ones just a little bit up in the generation tab. Let's scroll down. Here we see the position. Let's increase this. Okay, so now let's take this, Control C, Control V. Let's copy this to the next level. Okay, and in the first one that we've just done, let's take the last boundary right up, take it down to 0.1. Or actually, let's zero this up to 0.1 right over there. And let's go over to this one as well, and let's zero this out to a very, very low value. And Let's Control C, Control V. Let's copy this again. And let's paste it on the lower part of the tree as well. So now let's just quickly amend these right over there. Why this is happening, because we are replacing one of these branches right over here with one of these fronds. So to cancel this out, just go over to the generation tab where it says any. Let's set this to none, and the same goes for everyone. Right over here, let's set this to none and set this to none as well. So now it's not looking that great because we need to finesse all these front systems that we've got going right over here. Okay, so now let's select these ones right over here, the second set of branches or fronts. Let's go down to the first and last, and I want to increase the length at the bottom ones right over here. Okay, so to do this, go over to the spine tab, and in the absolute value right over here, let's just increase the bottom length and reduce the top length. Let's select the fronts right over here, and in the geometry tab right over here, okay, so if you're running into a problem like this, okay, there's two things that is happening now. So the fronds that I'm using, the leaves right over here, as you can see, those skins are way too thick. So for us to have these fronds living right up there against the other fronds, we need to take down the parent value right over here so that they can spawn and generate at the top there. And the same goes for these ones as well. Let's reduce this value so that they can generate at the top points. And the same goes for this one right over here. Let's reduce this value till they can grow wherever they want. So that is how you can fix that problem if you have something like that going on. And let's reintroduce some of these because I took them away. So let's reintroduce some more. Now we just need to get all of the fronds the same size. Okay, so let's select these. Go into the skin tab and let's make this a value of 0.1. Let's check if they're still growing there. So get 0.05. Okay, so now let's do this for all of them. 0.05. Let's rather use the absolute value, 0.05, and the same goes for the lower one here as well, 0.05. Oops, let's do 2. Okay, so in this one right over here, let's increase the length. Okay, and let's reduce this one's length so they start to match each other just a little bit more. Reduce this a little bit more. Let's take this away. Let's max this out. And let's introduce a absolute value, and in the generation tab right over here, let's just make sure they are spiraling so there's not a visible pattern. Let's increase the length to your liking. Let's introduce some more. Okay, that's starting to look like a fuzzy looking tree. And now let's go over to this second set right over here. Let's reduce the length, but let's increase the length at the lower ones so they overlap for a more continuous blend. Okay, and the same principle goes for these ones as well. So let's introduce some more length, but let's introduce some more length at the lower end. So another question you might be having is, how can we have more patches growing longer than other patches? So in this little generation tab right over here, you have your plus and minus icon right over here. Okay, so this is where you'll be able to give certain patches a little bit more length than the other patches. Okay, so what I like to do, I like to put it between random and cohesive. Okay, and this is where you can give certain points longer and certain points shorter ones. So as you can see, it's starting to happen, but we want it more patchy. So for instance, if you introduce some more noise, like let's set this to 0.1. Okay, and we play with the amount. So let's go crazy now. Let's just increase this to something like 2. Okay, so now you can see certain points are growing thicker and longer than other points, but this is just over exaggerating there for the moment. So let's take it down to 0.5. See how that looks. So now you can see we're getting these patches that longer leaves and shorter leaves, and the same you can apply for these ones as well. So in the plus and minus right over here, let's set this in the middle. Let's introduce this to 0.25 or 0.35. Okay, and the same goes for this one as well. Go into the plus and minus variance setting, minus here, and let's set this to 1. That's a bit too much. Let's take it down to 0.5. So now we need the blending from green to yellow. Okay, so let's introduce to this one yet again the same one. Let's take these ones, Control C, Control V, and let's paste them in those ones. The last set of beautification branches right over there. Okay, so now we have this going on. So let's reduce this spine length to something to 2, maybe 0.1. And in the generation tab, let's go down to the spine tab, and in the generation tab right over here, let's introduce some smoothing, and let's reduce this noise amount to something like 0.5. So we introduce a little bit more noise. So now we need to blend from the green leaves to the yellow leaves. Okay, so now let's introduce the cohesion between the green leaves and the dead leaves right over here. And how we'll go about doing this is we'll be creating material sets right over here. So let's create 2 of them. Let's call this green, give it some few time. And minus icon, let's give this yellow. And while we're here in the yellow, let's add our yellow leaves that we've created previously. Okay, let's select those, the copy one. Okay, and let's select the green one right over here. Let's add our green leaves. Okay, so now in the override season right over here, let's override this and let's select this and set this to spring. And in the yellow one right over here, let's select the override season and let's set this to summer. Okay, so now we need to assign those to the front right over here. So let's hit that plus and minus icon. Let's take the green one and let's apply it to the green right over here, and let's apply the yellow to the yellow right over there. Okay, so to do the transition between the green and yellow leaves right over here, the second set of fronds that we've created, you'll need to go to the material set right over here, create 2 materials right over here, green and yellow. In the green one, you'll add your green leaf setup, and in your yellow leaf right over here, you'll add your yellow leaf setup. In both of them, you'll override your settings, set the first one to summer and the second one to spring in this case. Okay, and on the front over here in the material tab, you will add your green leaf and your yellow leaf. You also have your weight, able to blend your weight. But for us to have that transition from green to yellow, we'll go over to the material tab right over here, and where it says, in the branches right over here in the material tab, you'll go over to the distant offset and set this value to a very, very low value. Okay, so now you can see it's starting to blend. So let's take this a little bit down. Select this one. I'm just gonna deactivate not this one. And as you can see, we have that blending coming from the green leaves to the yellow leaves at the bottom. Okay, furthermore, let's go over to the yellow leaves right over here. And let's work the color just a little bit more. Let's desaturate them, make them a bit darker. Okay, this works a little bit more. Okay, so in these ones as well, let's give the last set of branches right over here in the forces tab, let's give it some direction. And let's reduce this to 1.5. So let's go over to the last set of branches right over here for the last set of leaves, and let's increase the length to 0.65. And furthermore, in your render application of choice, you can give this few more variants as you would like. For instance, you can go here into the leaf shader right over here and add a few more cutouts, or you can just assign different leaves in your render application. And that is it for this video, guys. Thank you for joining. I hope you've learned something. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button down below, and don't forget to check out our Patreon page. It would help us a lot. So stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.